The woman at the gate was a rainy Monday morning in Los Angeles. The clouds hung low, and the city seemed slower than usual. People walked quickly with umbrellas, trying to stay dry. At the side entrance of a tall glass building, a woman stood, alone under a small roof. Her name was Laila. She was a security guard who worked the night shift and was just about to finish, but today, she had stayed an hour extra to help her co-worker, who was running late. Laila was in her late 30s, with tired eyes and a soft voice. She wore her uniform proudly, even though the job didn't pay much. She needed it to support her daughter, who was sick and needed regular treatment. Laila never complained, even when she was exhausted, even when her hands were freezing. She smiled at everyone who walked in or out. This building wasn't just any place, it was the headquarters of a major production company. Big movie stars and producers came through those doors. Most of the security staff never saw them up close. They used the main entrance, and when someone famous needed to come in quietly, arrangements were always made in advance. No one was allowed through the side door unless their name was on the list. It was just after 7 a.m. when Laila saw a tall man approaching. His hood was pulled up, and he wore dark jeans and boots. He didn't seem in a rush. Something about him felt familiar, even before she saw his face clearly. When he looked up and gently pushed back the hood, Laila's breath caught in her throat. "Good morning," he said kindly. "I'm sorry to trouble you. I didn't want to use the front entrance today. Too much attention." Laila blinked. Her voice almost failed her. You're Keanu Reeves." He gave a humble smile and nodded. "Yes, but today, I'm just here to visit someone quietly. A friend of mine is working on a project here. I know this is the wrong entrance, but I thought maybe your..." Laila hesitated. Her training said she shouldn't let anyone in without clearance, but his tone was soft, respectful, not entitled. She looked into his eyes and saw no pride, no demand, just sincerity. I don't see your name here, sir," she said gently, "but I know who you are, and I trust you. Go ahead." He nodded again, deeply grateful. "Thank you, really. What's your name?" "Laila." "Laila," he repeated, as if saving it in his memory. "I won't forget that." Keanu walked inside, quiet and calm, and Laila stood there with her heart pounding. For a moment, she smiled, proud that she had helped someone like him, not because he was famous, but because he seemed kind. An hour later, Laila was called into the office. Her supervisor, a man who rarely looked her in the eye, was waiting. His voice was cold. "Laila, you let someone in through the side entrance this morning, without clearance?" "Yes, sir," she replied. "It was Keanu Reeves. I don't care who it was. This is a breach of protocol. You're suspended, effective immediately. Leave your badge." Her mouth fell open, but he wasn't dangerous. He was kind. "Hey, that's not your decision to make," the supervisor snapped. Laila's throat tightened. She felt her world crumble in seconds. She had just tried to be decent to someone who was decent to her, and now she was losing her job. Her only job. Outside, the rain had stopped, but Laila's eyes were filled with silent tears as she walked home, unsure of how she would tell her daughter, unsure of what tomorrow would bring. But what Laila didn't know was that inside the building, something had shifted. Keanu Reeves had found out what happened to the woman who let him in, and he was not the kind of man to let kindness go unnoticed. Whispers behind glass doors. News of Laila's suspension didn't take long to spread. Though not everyone cared, most people in the building were too busy with meetings, calls, and scripts. To them, she was just a name, just a badge number that no longer scanned at the security gate. But not to Keanu. After he was done with his quiet meeting, he went back down the same side entrance, expecting to see her again. When she wasn't there, he asked one of the passing guards, "Hey, is Laila not on shift anymore?" The guard looked confused. "You mean the woman from this morning? She was suspended." Keanu's brows lowered. "Suspended? Why? She let you in, right?" The guard shrugged. "Management wasn't happy. No clearance, no exception. She broke the rule." Keanu stood there for a moment, silent, not angry, just disappointed. "Do you know where she lives?" "No idea, sir." Keanu didn't say anything more, but as he walked away, his mind was racing. He had met a lot of people in Hollywood, people who smiled with their mouths, but never with their hearts. Laila was different. She looked at him like he was just a person, not a celebrity. And she helped him not because of who he was, but because she saw someone who needed kindness. That mattered. Meanwhile, Laila sat on the worn couch in her small apartment, staring at the floor. Her daughter, a soft-spoken girl named Hina, sat beside her. She was only 9, with a gentle face and a blanket around her shoulders. "Mama," Hina said softly. "Are you okay?" Laila forced a smile. "Yes, baby, just tired. You didn't eat." "I will soon. Tell me about your drawing today." Hina lifted a piece of paper. It was a sketch of a woman standing in front of a tall glass building. Next to her was a tall man with a kind smile. "That's you," Hina said. "And that's the man you helped." Laila's eyes welled up. She pulled her daughter into a hug and whispered, "Thank you, sweetheart. You always make me strong." The next day, something unexpected happened. A black SUV parked outside Laila's apartment building. She saw it through her small window and thought maybe someone rich had come to visit the neighbor upstairs. But then there was a knock on her door. When she opened it, she froze. Keanu Reeves stood there. No cameras, no bodyguards, just him. "Hi," he said gently. "Sorry to drop by. May I come in?" Laila couldn't speak. She just stepped aside. Hina peeked from behind the couch, eyes wide. "I'm so sorry," Keanu said, stepping in. "I didn't think they'd do that to you. I never wanted you to get in trouble." Laila shook her head slowly. "You don't have to say sorry. I made the choice. It was the right one, even if it cost me." Keanu sat down across from her. "Do you want your job back?" She looked up, surprised. "That's not up to me." "Maybe not," he said, "but it might be up to someone else." She didn't know what he meant yet, but her heart began to hope just a little. Hina came forward, holding the drawing. "I made this," she said shyly. Keanu looked at it, then smiled warmly. "You're a very good artist. May I keep this?" Hina nodded fast. Keanu turned back to Laila. "You didn't treat me like a movie star. You treated me like a person. That's rare, and it's worth protecting." For the first time in 2 days, Laila's shoulders relaxed. Just a little, just enough to breathe again. But Keanu wasn't done. When he left her apartment, he made 2 calls, one to a journalist friend, and the other to the head of the production company whose building Laila had guarded for years. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply told them what happened, why it mattered, and how many people would care once they heard the story of the woman who lost her job for being kind. The next morning, Laila's world would shift again, but this time, in a way no one expected. The story that couldn't be silenced. The morning started like any other. The sky was still a dull gray, and Laila was in the kitchen making tea when her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something told her to answer. "Hello," she said softly. "Hi, is this Laila Malik?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, my name is Sarah. I'm a journalist with the Morning Spotlight. I'd like to talk to you about what happened at the studio. Do you have a moment?" Laila's hand trembled slightly. "How did you get my number?" "A mutual friend gave it to me," Sarah replied. "Someone who believes your story deserves to be told. Someone named Keanu." Laila's heart skipped. Sarah continued, "I want to write a piece not about a movie star, but about a woman who did the right thing and lost everything because of it." Laila didn't know what to say. She had never been interviewed. She was just a guard, a mother, a woman trying to survive. But something in her stirred. Maybe her story could matter. Maybe it could mean something more than pain. They met at a small cafe later that afternoon. Sarah was kind and careful with her words. She listened without interrupting. Laila told her everything, not just about Keanu, but about her job, her daughter, and how she'd tried to stay strong through it all. That same evening, the article went live with the headline, "The Security Guard Who Showed More Humanity Than Hollywood." It started small, just a few clicks, a few shares, but by midnight, it had gone viral. Hundreds of thousands of people read Laila's story. Strangers flooded the comments section with support, anger at her suspension, and praise for her courage. And then the unexpected happened. Major media outlets picked it up. TV anchors mentioned her name, influencers and celebrities tweeted about her. Justice for Laila began trending across the internet. But the biggest surprise came the next morning. A knock on Laila's door. She opened it to see two men in suits, representatives from the studio. "Miss Malik," one of them said, "we're here on behalf of the board. We'd like to speak with you formally." Laila stepped aside, still in disbelief. They sat in her small living room, uneasy in their expensive suits. One of them cleared his throat and said, "We owe you an apology. We didn't handle things correctly. Our decision was made in haste." Laila said nothing. She just listened. "We would like to offer you your job back," the other man added quickly, "along with a public statement clearing your name." Laila looked at them quietly. "You didn't call me when I cried. You didn't care when I walked away. Now the world is watching, and suddenly you do." The first man shifted. "You're right. We were wrong. Do you want to come back?" The second man asked. Laila thought for a moment. "I want a job. Not because you're afraid of bad press, but because I still believe kindness matters. If you can promise that, I'll come back." They both nodded, and one of them extended a hand. Laila shook it, but her eyes weren't focused on them. Her mind was on her daughter, who sat behind the curtain, smiling wide. Later that day, Laila returned to the building, but something was different. She didn't walk in as a guard. She walked in as a symbol. People clapped softly as she passed. A woman from Human Resources gave her a warm hug. Even the receptionist, who barely noticed her before, said, "You're amazing." Keanu Reeves was not there that day, but he had sent a handwritten note. "Dear Laila, kindness is not weakness. The world needs more of it. Thank you for reminding us. With respect." Laila folded the note carefully and placed it in her pocket. It wasn't just paper. It was proof that someone saw her, not just her uniform. But just when she thought the story had reached its end, something else happened. Something that would change not just her job, but her entire life. An offer beyond her dreams. It had been 2 days since Laila returned to work, and already everything felt different. People nodded at her with respect. A few even asked about her daughter. Laila was still the same person, but now she was seen. Haina's health had always been Laila's quiet burden. The treatments were expensive, and every paycheck went toward hospital bills, medication, and travel. Laila never asked for help. She believed in hard work. But now, something had shifted, not just around her, but inside her. On Friday morning, as she was finishing her shift, she was called to the conference room. "Don't worry," her supervisor said with a nervous smile. "This time it's not bad news." Laila entered the room and stopped. Sitting there, waiting, was Keanu Reeves. He stood up when he saw her, smiling softly. "Hello again, Laila." She blinked in disbelief. "You came back." "Of course," he said. "I told you I wouldn't forget." He offered her a chair, and she sat slowly. "I didn't just come to say thank you," he said. "I came with an idea." Laila tilted her head, curious. "You once told me you made a choice." Keanu continued. "You chose kindness. Now I want to make a choice too. I'm starting a small foundation that supports people who show quiet courage. People like you." He placed a folder on the table and opened it. "I want you to be the first person we help," he said gently. "We'd like to cover Haina's medical expenses. All of them. Full treatment, travel, care, everything. And we'd like to help you go back to school, if that's something you've ever dreamed about." Laila stared at him, frozen. She couldn't speak. Her lips trembled. "You don't owe me anything," she whispered. Double quotes, "I know," Keanu said. "But this isn't about owing. It's about honoring. You changed my day with one small decision. Now I want to help change your future." Laila covered her mouth as tears fell. She tried to hold them in, but they came freely. For years, she had carried the weight alone. Now, someone else was helping her lift it. Keanu reached into his pocket and took out Haina's drawing, the one she had given him earlier. "Your daughter is special," he said. "And so are you." That evening, Laila returned home, holding the folder close to her chest. Haina ran to the door. "Mama, what happened?" Laila knelt and hugged her tight. "Baby, we're going to the best hospital next week. You're going to get better." Haina looked up, wide-eyed. How? Someone helped us, Laila said softly. Someone kind. A week later, mother and daughter flew out of town for Heine's treatment. Everything was arranged: flights, accommodation, even a special welcome at the hospital. Keanu didn't make a big announcement. He didn't post online. He just made sure the little girl who drew dreams on paper had the chance to live them. During their trip, Laila kept a journal. Each night, she wrote about her journey, not just the travel or the doctors, but the emotions, the healing, the strangers who smiled at her, and the quiet moments of hope. And after weeks of care, Heine began to improve, slowly at first, but surely. It was a new beginning. But Laila still didn't know that something even bigger was waiting when she returned home. Something beyond kindness, beyond gratitude. Something that would place her story in front of the world. The world takes notice. 3 months had passed. Heine's health was improving. She had more color in her cheeks now. She laughed more, ate better, and even started drawing again. Laila had never seen her daughter this full of light. Every night, they said a little prayer, not asking for more, just thanking for what they had. Back home, Laila returned to her job, but now it was different. She wasn't just a woman at the side gate anymore. The higher-ups gave her a small promotion. She now oversaw the side entrance team and handled access for special guests. But even then, Laila remained quiet, respectful, and humble. She never brought up what had happened unless someone asked. One afternoon, while she was checking the daily logs, her phone rang again. It was Sarah, the journalist from the Spotlight. "Hi, Laila," she said excitedly. "I know this is sudden, but I have news. The story I wrote about you, it's been nominated for an award." Laila was stunned. An award? Yes, the Human Dignity Media Prize. It honors stories that inspire change, and they want you to come to the ceremony. It's in New York. Laila paused, unsure. I don't belong on a stage. You do, Sarah said gently. You're the reason people cried when they read that story. Not because it was sad, but because it reminded them of the good that still exists. Laila hesitated. Traveling to New York felt too far, but Heine held her hand and said, "Mama, I want people to hear your voice." So Laila said yes. The ceremony hall was beautiful, tall chandeliers, golden light, and rows of people dressed in black suits and shimmering dresses. Laila wore a simple blue gown and stood quietly at the edge of the room, feeling like she didn't belong. But when her name was called and she walked to the stage, the crowd stood. A full standing ovation. People she had never met, journalists, artists, business leaders, all clapping for a security guard who chose to be kind. She took the microphone with shaking hands. "I don't have many big words," she began softly. "I'm not used to rooms like this. I was just doing what felt right. Sometimes doing the right thing feels small, until someone tells you it wasn't." The hall was silent. "I want to thank the man who reminded me that kindness still matters. Not just in private, but in public too. Mr. Keanu Reeves," from the back of the hall. Keanu stood and clapped. Slowly, his face warm with pride. Laila continued, "This isn't just about me. It's about every worker who's invisible, every mother trying to survive, every child who believes in drawings and dreams. If this story touched you, let it move you to notice people more." By the end of her speech, many in the audience were wiping tears. After the event, several people came to speak with her. Some offered to support her daughter's future education. Others wanted her to speak at their companies, schools, and non-profit events. But one conversation stood out. A woman in her 50s, with short gray hair and a soft voice, walked up and said, "My name is Evelyn. I'm starting a new foundation, Women of Quiet Strength. We help mothers, workers, and women from underrepresented communities find new paths in life. Would you consider being a partner?" Laila was stunned. "A partner?" "Yes," Evelyn smiled. "Your story changed how I see the world. Now I want to help you change it for others." By the end of that night, Laila's world had grown again. She wasn't just a mother. She wasn't just a guard. She had become a voice, a light, a symbol of hope. But the most touching part came a week later when Heine brought home a drawing from school. It showed a woman standing in front of a crowd, holding a microphone, with a little girl by her side. "Who's this?" Laila asked. Heine smiled. "That's you, Mama." And that's me. Laila pulled her daughter into her arms and whispered, no matter how big the world gets, you'll always be my reason. But even as her world bloomed, a final surprise still waited. Something that would not only touch her but millions around the world. Asterisk the gift that echoed around the world a few months had passed. Laila's days were filled with new responsibilities, some she never dreamed she'd have. She was now working part-time with Evelyn's foundation, helping organize events for women who had faced hardship. She spoke at schools and community centers, sharing her story. She was even asked to record a short speech for a conference in London. But despite everything, Laila never stopped working the early shift at the side gate. This is where it started. She told people, this is where I'll always remember who I was and who I chose to be. She still wore her uniform, still stood tall, still smiled at everyone who passed through. Heine was healthier than ever. The treatments had helped her grow stronger. Her laughter filled the tiny apartment with joy every night. Laila watched her daughter blossom, and every time she did, she thought of the man who had stepped into their lives on a rainy morning. And then, one quiet afternoon, Laila got a letter in the mail. No stamps. No logos. Just a white envelope with her name handwritten in blue ink. Inside was a small card that read, Dear Laila, some stories are meant to be heard. Yours changed me. So I wanted to do something lasting. Meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m. Location, Sunrise Community Theater. With gratitude, Keanu. Laila had no idea what to expect. The next morning, she and Heine arrived at the old theater listed in the letter. It was quiet from the outside, but when they stepped through the doors, Laila gasped. The entire hall was full, not of fans, not of paparazzi. But of families. Workers, teachers, students, people from all walks of life who had been invited quietly. On the large stage stood Keanu. He smiled warmly as Laila entered and walked with Heine by her side. You made it, he said softly. What is this? She asked, eyes wide. Keanu gestured to the banner above the stage, the Laila Malik Scholarship, honoring kindness, courage, and quiet strength. Laila couldn't speak. Keanu explained. We're launching a national scholarship in your name every year. It'll help women, especially single mothers, go back to school, get training, and build new lives, just like you deserve. The audience clapped. Heine's hand tightened in her mother's. Tears streamed down Laila's face. You didn't have to do this. Keanu smiled. Maybe not. But the world needs more Laila Maliks. If this helps even one, it's worth everything. He reached into his pocket and handed Heine a box. She opened it carefully. Inside was a medal. Engraved were the words, for the one who opened the door with kindness. Heine looked up at her mother and whispered, Mama, that's you. Laila hugged her close, overwhelmed with emotion. Keanu turned to the crowd. This story started with a simple act. One woman, one moment, one choice. And now, it becomes a movement. Let us never forget kindness may be quiet, but its echo is endless. The room erupted in applause. That night, the news traveled far. Television channels picked it up. Articles called Laila the woman who reminded Hollywood to feel. And on social media, her story was shared across the world with a new hashtag. Hashtag Be Kind. Like her, people from different countries sent letters. Some named their children after her. Others donated to the scholarship. Young women posted videos of how Laila's story gave them courage to chase their dreams. But Laila never let fame change her. She still rode the same bus. Still shopped at the same little grocery store. Still walked Heine to school every morning, holding her hand with quiet pride. One evening, after dinner, Heine asked, Mama, do you think people will forget our story one day? Laila smiled. Maybe, but even if they do, the kindness will still be there, in someone else's heart, ready to grow. And in a small drawer beside her bed, Laila kept two things. Heine's first drawing of her at the gate, and the handwritten note from Keanu that said, I won't forget you.